What's up, listeners and supporters of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast? We need some help from you, and it won't take up too much of your time. As we grow, we always want to hear your feedback, so take a minute or two to fill out a short anonymous survey. The survey link is right in the episode notes for this podcast. It's easy and takes less than 5 minutes. As always, we thank you for your continued support. Podcast episode 155. We've done 155 of these. Dexter Henry, Brian Fonseca here. A lot going on in the world of sports. A lot, especially centered around the NBA. This is going to be an NBA heavy episode. So, with the draft on the horizon, we brought our man Jamal Murphy, the blackatologist. That's right, he knows college basketball better than a lot of you people out there. Put some respect on his name. Been saying that for quite some time. Murph, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
As always,
there's only a few college guys in here. I'm looking like, who are the college guys again?
You know what I noticed is that, and I think I've raised this to Dexter like a couple weeks ago, when you listen to a lot of these podcasts and they have the college basketball guest or the college basketball guru, it's usually just a white dude who just follows college basketball or whatever.
That's
we're like, yeah,
I'm the only one.
Yeah, we're the only podcast that's getting a black college basketball.
That's what I'm
saying.
Insider. Like, here.
Word. You want to talk about college basketball and need somebody. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know who to find that's black after Murph. I have no idea. I literally don't know where to go.
And all the players are black, so
True, right. there you go. So Jamal Murphy's with us. You can catch him his work. He's wrote for the Undefeated. He also co-hosts the Bros Pod with William Roden, and a new podcast that you're doing right now, right, Murph? You got a new podcast that you've been up on.
Yeah, new podcast Up Next with my guy Khalid Green, who's an ex-scout for the Nets. Also coached high school basketball in the city. A lot of into grassroots, done a lot of grassroots stuff. So we're talking to the top youth players or top basketball players, and juniors and seniors and sophomores and freshmen, and not just basketball, all sports. So yeah, check that out.
Yeah,
Up Next.
Definitely check that out. Up Next, a lot of stuff going on in the grassroots, especially during this time with COVID. So that's always interesting. But Brian, I want to act like we didn't introduce Brian. Brian is here, just fresh off a new job, first full-time gig, writing for Deadspin now.
Nice.
Brian, we got to ask this because we've talked about a lot of stuff at work. So I got to throw this to you so you can have a chance to explain. How does it feel to have some full-time employment?
Bruh, it took. I mean, if you want to count the first time I started an actual blog and was getting paid a little bit to write, you're talking about a 7.5-year window where it's just freelancing and part-time and contracts, and you know how it is. So it took a long ass time. But I like what Deadspin's doing in this new, you know what I mean? They had some turnover and they've relaunched the site in April, and I like the things that they've been trying to do. I already have my first story up, and it was something that, I went into the day, and you got to do your daily stuff in general. And I went into the day not knowing what I was going to do because, it's the first day. The Chris Paul trade happens, which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
And, another thing led to another. And then I ended up writing about how, look, like, this is great for the Suns, but the real key to this is DeAndre Ayton, which we're going to get into later, because I think that we're sort of overlooking, like, yeah, I mean, this could get into the playoffs with just Devin Booker and Chris Paul alone. And then DeAndre Ayton is somebody who can really put them over the top, I feel like, whatever that over the top is. But yeah, I think that, I mean, it's weird to like get a job during COVID, but it's also cool. I know that I'm going to be working from home for at least like 6 months or something like that, which, I don't really have a problem with. And when it's time to go into the office, we'll adjust. But like, where you're going to have your daily duties. And the thing that I'm looking forward to most is just trying to get some features going and seeing if I can, try to get those at a routine amount. Feature stories take some time, so if you can get to 1 or 2 a month, that would be ideal. And then some columns like I did today. So, just balancing that out, and obviously continuing to build all the stuff that I'm trying to do independently. Because when I tweeted that, I said that there's something else on the way. I can't speak on that yet. I've told both of you, you guys know what it is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But when it's ready, then we'll be in there. But that's down the line.
Well, salute to you, man. You know me, and I know Jamal feels the same.
Yep.
We're very proud of you and happy that you've had this opportunity and grinded and did it, and people need to recognize that. So for all our listeners, please check out Brian's work on Deadspin as we go forward. But you talked about your article, right, that you wrote about Chris Paul trade. Let's just go over this real quick before we get into some draft stuff. The Phoenix Suns have agreed at the time of us recording this is in principle on a deal to acquire Oklahoma City Thunder All-Star guard Chris Paul. This was reported by Adrian Wojnarowski, of course. And the deal sends Paul Abner Nader to the Suns for Kelly Oubre Jr., Ricky Rubio, Ty Jerome, Jalen LeCue, and a 2022 first-round pick. We had talked about this rumor before, Brian, but Jamal, what did you make of this deal? How impactful do you think this could be for the Suns?
I mean, I wasn't expecting it really, but I think it's impactful for the Suns. I think they just want to. It seems like they just want to take that next step and at least become a playoff team in the West at the very least. Kind of almost like what OKC did last year. I would, get into the playoffs, so you can say that franchise is taking a turn for the better. And I think obviously Chris Paul, when you look at what the Suns did, especially in the bubble, going undefeated, they're a team that seems like they're ready. So adding Paul should get them into the playoffs. I just worry a little bit about Chris Paul, and I know Monty Williams is a great coach, but he's still a young coach. I just wonder, I just hope that they mesh. That's the only thing. That's the only negative I could see if they start butting heads. Chris Paul thinks he knows more than Monty Williams. He thinks he knows more than every coach probably. So I would just worry about that. But on the court, I think it'll get them to the playoffs.
Yeah, it should. It seems like it's this kind of culture-shifting move for them, right, to try to get in the playoffs. It's not like they're going to be a championship contender. At least I don't think most people think so. But you do feel like it could shift the culture. But, Brian, you wrote about the fact that there has to be a more to this. And it kind of goes to the point that Murph makes too, right? We can see some help in terms of him developing Booker, taking the ball out of Booker's hands, also making Ayton a better player in the pick and roll. But Ayton's kind of that player we're waiting to see. Chris Paul's an all-star. Devin Booker's been an all-star. But DeAndre Ayton's got to take that next step as a former number one overall pick. Do you think this will help his development? Do you see this as a positive for DeAndre Ayton?
This has to be the best case scenario for him in terms of the development of a young center. I think with Chris Paul, we can all admit, as much as we love Chris Paul up here, and he's one of the best point guards ever, we were surprised at how good he was last year to some degree, right? We have to kind of acknowledge that. So at some point, this is going to be his 16th year. He's going to be 36. If he isn't 36 already, I think he's going to be 36 next year. The other shoe has to fall. We have to see if this is something that's going to continue. Now, luckily, he doesn't need to do what he did last year necessarily on this team. Maybe he can become a more of a 15-point, 8 or 9 assist guy or whatever the case may be, but the key is to stay healthy. I think that if he's your third leading scorer, that's probably ideal. DeAndre Ayton averaged 18 and 11 last year, and while it's an 18 and 11 that didn't quite feel like an 18 and 11, I think that Chris Paul can sort of, make that easier transition for him to being the center that we think he could. Because look, this is a first overall pick from a couple years ago, and this is what I was talking about. First overall pick from a couple years ago. He's going to be 22 the entire season up until July, but they probably won't even play until July. But he's going to be He's going to be 22 this whole year. And it's this is somebody who can really develop and take that next step. So you got to try and get the most out of him, because if that happens, you're talking about a little bit of a big three situation where you have 3 all-star caliber dudes. And in the Western Conference, that is opening up a little bit, because we don't know how the Lakers are going to look, although we know that they're going to be contenders. We definitely don't know how the Clippers are going to look. Houston's about to blow it up. And when you go on down the line, it's hey, Phoenix matches up favorably with Denver maybe, or some of these other teams if they could get DeAndre Ayton to reach that next level.
Shall be interesting. You talked about Houston blowing it up. It seems like there's a problem down there in Houston. We talked about this in a previous podcast. Westbrook and Harden not sort of being in the direction or not being in alignment with what the team is doing. And I think a lot of that has to do with their owner, Tillman Fertitta, not wanting to spend money. But now there are reports that James Harden definitely wants to be traded. Westbrook wants to be traded. And particularly Harden, a lot of rumors about him coming to Brooklyn. Now, I told you guys this, and I've spoken with some people close to the Nets who say, yes, there have been talks. Nothing obviously is imminent, but they have been talking about it. And one person told me they think it's going to happen. I
It
think
might happen by the time this podcast is
it's
up.
possible, but yeah, it might happen by the time this podcast is up. I think the biggest question that a lot of the critics of this, including myself, have said is, well, how is this going to work? You have three top scorers, one who's very efficient in KD, and we still don't know what KD is going to be like coming back. And then Harden, particularly in Kyrie, both, if they're on the team, need the ball. You can't have all these balls. There's not only one ball to go around. Murph, what do you think about Harden as a fit in Brooklyn? Do you like that? Yay or nay?
I don't know. I don't think it fits. But if they can get him, they're going to do it. This is, and as a person who's living in New York in the media, I don't mind it. It's good. It'll be a whole bunch of stories to write about it, whether they fit or not. So, it sounds like it's going to happen. All the right people who need to be talking about it are talking about it when things like this are imminent. So I believe it. And like I said, I don't think it really fits basketball wise. And I mean, Kevin Durant's really gonna have to prove himself. If Kevin Durant can make this work, he might get the credit. He's so, long wanted. You know what I mean?
I don't know if he will though, because I think people will still probably come out and say, "Oh, but you had James Harden and Kyrie Irving." You know what I mean?
Right. But I just feel like chemistry wise, it's so crazy, and he would be the one who would have to pull it all together and be the leader. Now, can he do that? I don't know, but if he did it, I think he would get credit.
I mean, he would have to be the one because I don't see the other two dudes doing it. And there's also a lot of pressure. Another issue I have with this, and I'll get to this, Brian. There's a lot of pressure on Nash if this goes down to manage all these superstars and egos and everybody wanting the ball. And
D'Antoni there too.
And D'Antoni there too.
I thought him and D'Antoni didn't really like. I mean, not that they didn't get
Who,
along.
Harden and D'Antoni?
I didn't know that they liked each other like this, where they're willing to do it again.
I mean, he's not the head coach anymore. I mean, that's for one. And number two, even if they didn't like each other, maybe that just speaks to how bad Harden wants to get out of Houston. Right? I'm going to go back even if I don't like this guy.
You know what I want if I'm Houston though, because I was looking at the numbers and looking through. Okay, how could this trade actually happen, right? And you're talking about Spencer Dinwiddie's obviously in that deal. He has 1 year left. 11-ish million.
Everyone's gone.
Karis LeVert's gone. Jared Allen's the third piece. And then I was gonna say Zane Musa is one of the other guys you could throw in there, but he's already gone. Clearly for a reason. It has to be Nicholas Claxton. If I'm Houston, I'm like, who's the young player from the Nets that I think can be something? It's Claxton, easily. And it's like Net fans aren't going to want to hear that because of like the guys they're giving up for that trade. And Net fans don't really like Harden, but obviously they didn't like Kyrie either, and they're going to warm up to him. They didn't like Durant either. They're going to warm up to him. Like, so it is what it is. Like, it's not just Nets fans, but this is what fans do when you don't like a guy and he's on your team. Well, most fans, not all fans. Because I'll tell you right now, Trevor Bauer signs with the Mets. I don't give a fuck. Like I'm like, I can't fuck with Trevor Bauer. Like, that's just me. But James Harden, you're talking about everybody's unloaded there, and then you're talking about Kyrie, Kevin Durant, James Harden, DeAndre Jordan's your center. I mean, we'll see. And then whoever the other starter, honestly, doesn't matter. It might be Karooks or somebody like that. I don't know what you're gonna do with your bench. I just don't.
Harris, maybe.
When you have too much talent, I just feel like it doesn't work. I feel like we see it in college basketball all the time, and we've seen it in the NBA. The Clippers were the most talented team in the NBA last year, and we saw what happened with them. Duke had Cam Reddish and R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson, and they lost in the second round, or not second round, the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament or whatever it was. So, like, this happens all the time.
Yeah, I think, and to put a bonus, I think the thing is that you can't think you could just put three superstars, if you want to call all of them that, together and think that it's just going to work. It has to be three superstars that have the right fit. Like when Bosh and Wade and LeBron came together, there never was a time in my mind where I was like, this isn't going to work. They all were pretty good defensively. I was like, it's just about figuring the other pieces around it. This is not one. There's two guys that are not good defensively in that situation and dominate the ball.
Yeah.
And I just see, Brian's used this word to me off us talking on the show, it's like I see this being a disaster. And I know Nets fans don't want to hear that, and they're so happy to be relevant that they would have 3 stars in here, and I understand the excitement in that because they are the Nets. No disrespect, but it is about fit, and that stuff matters. And I don't think this isn't playing 2K. Okay, you're not just gonna be mashing people up and putting them together, and it's gonna work.
It's gonna be one way or the other. It's either gonna be a disaster, or it's gonna be like like multiple championships or whatever the case may be. I feel like there's gonna be no in between. And by the way, the elephant in the room, Kyrie Irving, injuries, Kevin Durant coming back from a big injury, and James Harden is taking a lot of contact through his career. We don't know when that body's gonna start breaking down. I don't think it'll be soon, but like these are just things that you have to. I don't think this is quite Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and who was the third guy on that team?
Ray Allen.
No.
No. When they were at the Nets.
Oh.
Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce.
Jason
Terry?
Oh, Jason Terry, you talking about came in the trade?
Yeah.
Jason Terry was in the trade.
So I don't think this is the Nets Celtics trade. I felt like the third player was better, but it was just Jason Terry. No disrespect, I really like Jason Terry. But at that point. But I feel like I don't feel like this is that necessarily in terms of because those guys were a little bit older, but it could become that. We don't know.
who knows? It's gonna be interesting, but that could be on the horizon.
And you got 2 of the guys not known as team players. Let's be honest about it. They could prove us wrong, and but that's what they'd have to do because on the face of it, the last few years, Kyrie and Harden have not been the guys you look to as like possible glue guys or guys that bring teams together. So. I don't know. If you're talking about championships or disaster, I think disaster is closer to disaster right now.
Yeah. And by the way, and the last thing on this, the East is still really good. Like Boston, Miami, Philly is a wild card. We don't quite know what they're going to be. They're going to be relevant. Milwaukee, I would probably take Indiana off that list at this point. And there's another team I'm missing.
Toronto, depending on what they do.
Yeah, Toronto, depending on what they do. Even if they don't bring back Fred VanVleet, I feel like they're going to do something, right? But you're talking about, like, these are teams where, yes, the Nets will have the most top-end talent, but a lot of these teams will be bringing back a lot of the same dudes. And that chemistry, I mean, shit, Miami only needed a season, and we saw what they did in the playoffs. And there's talks about them potentially getting, somebody. I don't know what that somebody is, but somebody who's going to help them. And I think they have the type of team, and Boston has the type of team. Like, there are some teams who could piss these guys off already in the Eastern Conference. So it's just going to be very interesting, like, when all of this actually takes place.
The Sports Walk is back. Watch Season 3 of Backpack Broadcasting's original web series that brings you the opinions of real sports fans. The first 2 seasons and current season are available now for viewing on the Sports Walk YouTube channel and Facebook page. Check out the 2017 NYC WebFest official selection and see what other sports fans have to say on the hottest issues in sports today. It's easy. Just take the Sports Walk. You're approaching the NBA draft. Time of lifting this podcast, you'll be a day away from the NBA draft. That's coming up. A lot of talk around this draft. This is why we had Murph here, because he's somebody who keeps his eye on a lot of these college prospects in college basketball. So Murph, I guess we'll start off with this. When you look at this draft, there's been a lot of talk that there isn't a even clear consensus number 1. How many real stars or superstars are there in this draft? What are your thoughts on this draft and the talent that we could see picked here, especially in the lottery?
Yeah, I think it is a weak draft overall. I think there are about they're probably going to be 4 or 5 guys that have pretty good careers, all-star type careers. It's just a question of which 4 or 5 that's going to be. I do believe that it's the top 3 guys that I like. That people are saying it's a 3-person draft. I kind of agree with that in terms of LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and James Wiseman. And then after that, it's a crapshoot. And even between those 3, it's a crapshoot. So That's basically this whole draft is a crapshoot. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I feel like the
Yo,
draft. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
no, I was gonna say it's a good point. Because like when you look at drafts, like how often are the top 3 players actually the 3 best players? If you look through NBA drafts, that's probably never happened in history ever. You know what I mean?
It's a good point. That's actually a good point. So let's look at Minnesota at number 1. They got an interesting decision to make. James Wiseman has been avoiding them because he doesn't want to do any workouts or anything. He has nothing to do with them. It really seems like this kind of comes down to them between Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball. If you're the Timberwolves, who do you take there?
Whoa. I mean, that's what I'm saying. To me, it's a crapshoot again. I mean, to me, LaMelo Ball is the best player in the draft that I've seen. He didn't even play in college, but just in terms of who I've seen actually play, and I've seen a lot of him. He's the one who jumps off the screen to me when I watch. But does Minnesota take him when you basically have someone like him in D'Angelo Russell? Some people think that they can. I'm sure they could play together because at least LaMelo Ball is very unselfish. But I just don't. I mean, the fit wise, you would go Anthony Edwards because he's like a classic 2 guard. Athletic, 6'5", can shoot, but then he has issues in terms of, how dedicated to the game is he? How hard a worker is he? So if I'm Minnesota, I don't know what I do. You have Karl Anthony Towns already. So Wiseman seems like might not be the best fit. I would go Anthony Edwards and just pray.
Sounds like a typical Knicks draft. That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah, I would think that's probably where they would want to go in that. But you said after the top 3, this is even more of a crapshoot.
Right.
Which doesn't give, fans of you like a Pistons fan or you're a Cavs fan or you're a Knicks fan picking in that 5 to 8 range. You can't be happy about that. All right, so in that range, we're going from 4 to 13. Forget out the 5 to 8 range.
Hold on. Let me say this first. First overall pick, I agree that they should get Anthony Edwards.
Really?
But I don't. Anthony Edwards, I like him the least of the 3. I just think fit wise, he makes the most sense. I also think that this is probably the draft where if you have the number 1 pick, you should probably trade out of it because this is not really the draft where you want that high of a pick. But what I want is for Minnesota to draft LaMelo Ball because I want to see LaMelo Ball, D'Angelo Russell, and Karl Anthony Towns on the same team.
Do you?
Just because you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. Like when you see, like we talked about, how is Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie Irving going to work? I want to see how LaMelo Ball, D'Angelo Russell, and Karl Anthony Towns work just as much. That might be a funnier or just as funny of an experience.
They'll score. They ain't gonna stop anybody. They'll score. Right. They ain't gonna stop this. Those are 3 bad to below average defenders there. Even LaMelo Ball's defense leaves a lot to be desired. You want the anarchy. I see what you're going for.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's anarchy probably either way.
That's a good point. It probably is.
And it's Minnesota. Who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like whatever.
Timberwolves fans are gonna be so mad at that. They're gonna be so mad. So 4 to 13, if you're in that range for the lottery, and it's such a crapshoot, Jamal. Are there any guys that could fall in that range that you really like? We've heard a lot about Halliburton, Killian Hayes. Some people are enamored with Obi Toppin. Isaac Okoro.
Is there a Donovan Mitchell or a Bam or a Tyler Hero type of player in this draft
that could go to the Knicks?
Like, is there somebody like that who they might not get picked to like 11, 12, 13, 14, where, the teams there, they're probably like, you're looking at it right now, it's Boston, New Orleans, Sacramento, and they could, it won't be Sacramento, but they could potentially find that star and develop.
I want to say this before Murph answers the question. For people who are not viewing this podcast, they'll see Murph is like looking, I don't know if you're looking at a list of players or something, but it looks like a struggle. Like, you're like, man, I don't even know how I'm going to pick this stuff.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like. It looks like a struggle. And I feel like, damn, if Murph is struggling like this, the GMs ain't going to feel so good. But tell us what you got, Murph.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 categories though. You know what I'm saying? Like you talk about a guy like Yeah, I don't see a. Well, I mean, I don't see like a Donovan Mitchell type, a guy like that. Remember, Mitchell came in his first year and did his thing on a very high level. I could see guys maybe their second year doing that, like Okoro, like a Patrick Williams, who I loved at Florida State.
A lot
You
of
know,
people.
he jumped uh, off the court in terms of like when you're watching Florida State play, and he was
Yeah.
and you knew he was a freshman, but he only got like you know Leonard Hamilton plays like 10 guys and all like 15, 20 minutes, so you never felt like you saw enough of him. But I think in a couple of years with the right development, he could be a big time player. But then you have guys who maybe could help you right away, like a Obi Toppin, someone like that, who again, if you want to talk about what he did in college, I mean, he was an absolute beast
Hmm.
he was doing dunks I've never seen anybody do in games.
Yeah.
You
Between
know
the
what I'm
legs
saying?
on a fast break.
Yeah, like,
Although I think he's probably the pick that would piss the Knicks fans off the most if they got him at 8.
man,
I think that would be.
yeah.
I still think he'll be a
Well,
good player, but
yeah, I would. If he fell to 8, I think you could do worse than that.
usually
Halliburton's a guy that a lot of people like. Not the most athletic, but a very good all around player, a winner. People would say. So he has good size. So I think that's a solid pick. And Onyeka
mm,
Okongwu.
No Congo.
Uh,
Yep.
some people think should be in that top 3, but I think people recognize that he's like a high floor guy. Like you bring him in now, and he could probably play for you right away because he's great defensively, great size, and maybe he develops into something more. So in a draft like this, that you could easily swing and miss, he's one of the true safe bets, I think. So if you can get him between 4 and 8, you might have to jump at that. Um, besides that, it's looking kind of thin, guys.
that sounds like it's gonna be the message of the draft.
I do like Precious Achua. He's a New York City guy.
Yep.
Great size, great athleticism. Still kind of raw, and I think what's holding him back is that he's 21, so he's kind of old to be a freshman. He was old to be a freshman in college, so people are a little worried about that, and of course that what that does to your potential. That he's already 21, but I think he has a lot of upside.
All right, that's
I
that's
want
it.
I want to throw 3 names at you, all of whom we've all seen in college. Actually, 3 of them that I might throw in a 4th one. We'll see how these first 3 go. Cole Anthony, who's from Queens. We've both seen him up close.
I like Cole. It's tough.
That's a good answer right there.
I
Honestly,
like Cole. It's just yeah. You're not sure. He's athletic, but is he? How athletic is he? And how consistent can he be? Shooting wise, and then mentally. I mean, he's been like the man his whole high school life and earlier than that. Can he get along with other guys? That's kind of a question.
yeah. How often? And you watch a lot of college basketball. How often do you see a guy who, in his freshman year, plays for a losing team, shoots 40%, and then becomes a star in the NBA? That doesn't really happen.
He only played a few games though.
That's true
I
too,
mean,
because he
more
got
than a
hurt.
few, but I know what you mean. Like he did get a season cut short, so we'll cut him some slack. I still have hope as a New York native, but I don't know. He seems like the kind of player. Like, I don't know. Depends on the situation. Trey Jones, who I think the Knicks should probably get at 27.
Solid. I'm not sure what I think he's more like a career backup. Good, solid defensively. So I don't think he'll make that big of a difference to whoever drafts him. But he might be a solid player down the line.
And possible Miami Heat center, because they really like him, Vernon Carey Jr.
I actually like Vernon Carey Jr. a lot.
Mhm.
I like him a lot. I don't. How tall is he? What are they listing him as now?
I think 6'10", 270, something like that. I don't know what he currently is right now amid like pandemic and stuff.
If he's a legit
6'10",
6'10",
270 during the season.
but he's definitely skilled and can score. He's more of your typical low post center, so that's why I think he's that low. Remember when he was coming in as far as college seasons went, he was probably the best freshman in the country last year.
Mhm.
Shouldn't even say probably. He was the best freshman in the country. Um, but his stock is a little low because he's a classic big man, which really doesn't exist. But you could say the same thing about Bam when he was coming out of from Kentucky. He hadn't shown any of these perimeter skills that he's showing now. So when Bam came out, he was like a smallish classic big man, and that's kind of what Carey is.
I'm going to throw a couple names at you before we get out of here. Guards, because they've kind of. I think the Knicks should look at trying to get a point guard in the top, but if maybe Hayes or Halliburton are gone, some guys I looked at that impressed me with their college game. Kira Lewis from Alabama. What are your thoughts on him?
I mean, I honestly I didn't see much of him. I just remember very athletic, very quick, and he kind of surprised me. Kind of came out of nowhere. I would be a little scared because I just don't feel like he's really done enough to move this far up in the draft. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, some people have him and some people got him in the lottery. I'm a little bit scared. He's quick. The finishing is decent. The outside jumper still needs some work, in my opinion, but he's an intriguing prospect. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Another guy I liked for watching some of his games, Malachi Flynn from San Diego State. Just not the most athletic dude, but he seemed to me like he's able to create space really well and has a good feel for the game. What do you think of him?
Yeah, no, I like him a lot as a college player. I'm not sure how it translates to the pros because he's not like the super crazy athlete at the point guard position. But he's a winner, and probably can contribute right away. Because he's older, so he could probably step in and give you real minutes. And that's another factor now because remember we have the draft now and the season starts like in 2 months. So it's like guys that are older might be able to give you more this season, especially because you're not going to have a lot of time to develop. You got to really just we drafted you, it's time to go, let's go, we got a game in a month.
Yeah, it's gonna be like that. Last thing for me, for the Knicks fans, what should the Knicks do in this draft? They always find a way to mess it up, but
Halliburton.
What do you, if you're the Knicks, who should you be zoning in this draft?
Halliburton.
Yeah, I mean it's such a crapshoot, man. It's like it all depends who's available. If I like Halliburton, that would be a solid fit, but he's not not the most spectacular. Like he may have you gotta really know the game to kind of appreciate him, and so Knicks fans have to be patient and then see him like making big plays when it matters and give him time to develop. Like I said, Achua's dropping. It looks like they'll pass on him if you go by what you see in mock drafts. Like Achua's down to like the mid-teens, but I really like his upside. Just so raw, but hard worker, relentless, and that size about 6'10", and he's versatile. Can play on eventually I could see him playing on the perimeter. So I wouldn't mind like seeing a surprise like that. I mean, but Patrick Williams, we mentioned before, could be a stud. Okoro will be solid. We're not gonna know when the Knicks draft, when the Knicks make their pick on draft night. Nobody, it's gonna be wide open. We won't know whether it's a good pick or a bad pick until next year at the earliest.
Yeah.
Is there?
You're right.
Is there? This is the last thing I'll ask. Is there anyone who is probably going to go in the second round who you really like Jordan Nora, Cassius Winston, Jaden McDaniels, Omer Yurtseven, who I really like at Georgetown. And I told you that we saw him in person. I was like, yo, bring back to the basket centers, and this dude could pass. Yurtseven could pass too.
Yeah, he's just a little soft for me. And I watch like every single one of I'm a Georgetown fan, so I watch all their games.
He's
even when they're terrible, I watch all Georgetown games.
He's kind of slow too.
Yeah, there's something about him, but great shooter. That's for his size, great touch, but like slow-footed. So I'm worried about him, but I do like. There's one guy I like a lot who people have going in the second round, and he's kind of similar to Carey to me from Duke. Is Isaiah Stewart out of Washington.
Washington, yeah.
He was, and he's they have him listed as 6'8", so and he was a low post guy. But I feel like he could develop a perimeter game. He has all those skills in the world, and he's a dog. You know what I'm saying? Like every time I saw him, he was a beast. Either win or lose. I just think he got, he wasn't on the best team in college. They didn't really, he didn't really have much around him. But that's a kid I would look out for. I think he's very underrated, and I felt he was underrated all last year, even during the season.
All right, those are some people to definitely keep an eye on. NBA draft virtually this year, so we won't get to hear Knicks fans boo, as is what people like to see. Or generally have a reason to.
There might be some virtual booing.
There'll be some virtual, but those in virtual boo, or people will let it be known on Twitter. That's for sure. We absolutely can count on that. But yeah, so Wednesday night NBA draft coming up. I'm sure there'll be a lot more in terms of maybe trades that night, things that we haven't even talked about yet. So we'll have more to follow on that and more reaction. Murph, thank you for coming through and talking with some basketball with us. We always like that.
No, thanks for having me. And there is no Patrick Ewing behind you. No Patrick Ewing in this year's draft. So
Look, man, I had to bring up shades of the last great draft pick. We could definitely say. We had a good one in Porzingis, but we know what they did with that, and that's a whole other story. But that's the last great draft pick. I got to put some positive vibes around me, man.
Hey, I'm all for it. I'm feeling positive just from seeing that picture.
Yeah, it might end there. I don't think it's going to go further than there, but that's probably where it's going to end. And, that's fine. Murph, thank you, my man. Appreciate you.
No, thanks for having me.
Some are always looking for more sports content, and among the glut of sports media, some are looking for sports content that dives a bit deeper and doesn't just stick to sports. So check out Backpack Broadcasting's original long-form sports journalism series, Sideline Stories. The award-winning original series takes viewers directly into underrepresented communities within the world of sports. It's a series that goes beyond traditional sports reporting, like box scores and statistics, presenting exclusive stories that you won't find anywhere else. With a diverse group of correspondents, the series provides interviews and interesting stories around the world of sports, because there is so much beyond the game, and so much that occurs off the field or court that impacts each of us and the world we live in. Giving a voice to athletes, coaches, fans, and everyone involved in athletics, Sideline Stories looks to push sports storytelling further than ever before. It's a winner of the 2020 Independent Shorts Awards, and all episodes of Sideline Stories are available for viewing today on Backpack Broadcasting's YouTube channel and Facebook page.
One time for your mind, one time. One time for your mind, one time.
One time for your mind. We're doing things a little bit differently this week. We haven't done this in a while, but we have a guest here for One Time for Your Mind. It's our good friend of the podcast, good friend overall. He is one of the best young sports photographers in New York City. My man, Jeffrey Armstrong, also was on season 1 of the Sports Walk, episode 9.
Yep.
Only episode I shot in the Boogie Down Bronx with my man, Jeff Armstrong. We walked around Yankee Stadium in the heat. Remember how hot it was that day, Jeff?
So hot.
It was so hot. But Jeff was a trooper. He did it with me. We talked some Knicks basketball, which is kind of the reason we got him here. We don't even have him here to talk about the photography. Here to talk about some Knicks basketball. Jeff is a long-suffering, lifelong Knicks fan like myself. And when I used to work with this man, a lot of times he'd come up to me and be like, Dex, you see the game last night? You see what happened?
Yeah,
and I was like,
this is true.
Yeah.
I was there for a lot of these
conversations. Yeah. Brian was here for like, and I'll be like, yeah, I know. Yo, Dex, what you think of this move? I don't know. They fuck shit up again. Who knows? Something happened. Jeff, I guess the first question we got for you as a suffering Knicks fan. I know Brian will probably ask why you're still rooting for the Knicks, which is a fair question. But
no, there's reason to be optimistic now.
Okay.
Right now, it looks like they have a
Right
plan.
now.
Yeah. They got the coach. They got Worldwide West. They got Leon Rose. There seems to be a plan.
Okay, but let's find out from Jeff. Jeff, how are you feeling about this team with everything that's changed with them in the last 12, 15 months? If you go past that 18 months since trading KP, now is the people that Brian mentioned are now in here, and then also Tom Thibodeau as coach. How are you feeling about this organization?
It's tough to say, but I actually do feel confident about this team as of right now. This is before any Westbrook trade rumors are made. But right now, I'm liking the direction that the organization is on. And it looks like James Dolan doesn't have much of a a say within what's going on right now. So as long as he's out of any decision making, I'm perfectly fine with the way this organization is going.
Yeah, I think that's the way a lot of Knicks fans feel, right, Brian? You'd agree with that.
I think the Knicks fans that I talk to pretty much feel the same way. They want James Dolan to stop meddling. I know Dexter, you very badly want him to stay out the way because
100%.
I mean, look, and Dexter, you have the Mets Jets Knicks combo where it's like all your owners kind of suck. Until now, Steve Cohen. I mean, we're gonna see what happens with the Mets because it looks like that'll flip very soon. But as far as the other two situations, the Knicks in particular, because you're like kind of half into the Jets.
Yeah, they're about to get dropped. They're very close to getting dropped.
I feel like if they were be good or interesting or at least trying, you would be like, all right, cool. Like when Sam Darnold got drafted, you were like, oh, okay, there's reason for optimism here. They were 10-6 a couple of years before, but that wasn't the case. And with the Knicks, I mean, I don't even remember the record last year, but look, they were better. You know what I
don't mind.
They were better. And I mean, I feel like they should have been even better, but the way they built their roster was, you know what I'm saying?
They had 10 power forwards.
It just wasn't really ideal. But now, like Jeff, I mean, you hinted on the trade rumors and you touched on that a little bit, and I want to know. So I don't think the Russell Westbrook deal should happen. I tweeted about that. I mean, we all talked about this actually on Twitter, and we don't think that it should happen. But just your gauge of like some of these things, like what do you want to happen? What do you not want to happen as far as the Russell Westbrook rumor goes, as far as the talk of, and I don't know if this is real, but them being willing to trade RJ Barrett or Mitchell Robinson, which I don't really think they should do, but like just how do you feel about hearing all of this?
Well, that RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson one is new. I didn't hear that. But I do feel like if we do get Westbrook, that just messes up the development of RJ and whoever we do draft, and that just puts us in a deeper hole than we're already in.
Yeah, I feel like there's no need for the Knicks to do this. Yeah, I think there's no need to do it all unless, and I don't even think it can happen because the Rockets don't have it, unless you can get back multiple first rounders, which the Rockets can't do, which is why there's no reason to take on that salary and do that. And a lot of people you hear, oh, New York Knicks are desperate for a star. No, you know what we're desperate for? Winning. That's what we're desperate for.
Just being good.
Yeah,
that's it.
Not a star.
Is there any star y'all would want? Like any star, like or maybe I don't know if there's star, but like any name player. Like I saw a couple Knicks fans tweet out like, "Yo, I'd rather have Kevin Love instead of Russell Westbrook." Which
I would rather that.
I would rather that too, but I don't really want Kevin Love. I mean, asking me what star player I want, like what realistic star player I can get, because I'd be like, hey, I want Luka Doncic, but that's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, realistically, like, because you're the Knicks are in a position, as we get into this, the Knicks are in a position where they can kind of do what some other teams have did in the past. I think the Nets did do this recently, where it's like, yo, you can take back some star or past star or star-ish level talent who kind of has a contract that's, you know, more than what it should be if you take in a draft pick, or it doesn't even have to be a star, but a player. Like, would you be willing to kind of like with the Nets and the DeMar Carroll deal, where it's like, oh, this is a throw-in, you get the draft pick, you know, you're just eating salary for the sake of eating salary. Like it's, you know, kind of like what Andrew Wiggins was that last year, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I think if the player, Jeff Oz used too, but I think if the player has like 2 years and under on the contract, you know, I'd probably take it. Maybe even 3 if that you got the right kind of picks. If the Knicks did that, they should be all about gaining assets right now. That's kind of where I am on that.
But I would assume that the Rockets would want a pick or another young player in return for Westbrook.
They're bugging. They should not get a pick for Russell Westbrook. It should be like you should be giving me a draft pick if you're giving me that fucking contract.
I agree. Honestly. But they're looking at it like we're giving you a star. And that's fine, and that might be true. But I don't think it's a star that works for the Knicks. I think there's teams, you know, we've talked about this work better for Charlotte, Orlando, teams that really need a star. I think
Charlotte is the best fit.
Yeah, teams that need a star that can't get them through free agency. All right, so Jeff, like Brian said, talking about what you'd like to see happen with this team in the offseason, who are some players that you would actually like to see the team target, maybe bring in here to help our situation as Knicks fans?
Well, I'm not too sold on this free agency. There's no particular player that I would like to see in a Knicks uniform. I'm all for like the player development this year and just 2021 is the offseason I'm looking for. I want Giannis. I want Giannis.
Woo, big dreaming.
I want to develop the young core of R.J. Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and hopefully that entices Giannis to come to New York.
Is there anybody? Because we talked about this a little bit off mic, but like the best players, or not the best players in like period, but the best players for your particular situation will probably be Fred VanVleet, Joe Harris, Davis Bertans, Bogdanovich, as Dexter also mentioned off mic. Like these are players who will probably help your long term situation because one of them is a point guard, the other guys could shoot. You could always use shooting. Bertans is a little more size. If they were, and this is for both of you, long term contracts to any of those guys, would you be fine with it if, depending on what it looks like?
Fred VanVleet, I wouldn't mind him. I wouldn't mind him at all. He's proven himself these last 2 years with the Raptors, so I think he can help change and push the culture in New York.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that can too at the right price. If it's over 20 per year, I'm probably like, nah. But I think he's that kind of guy you might like, right? He's 26, still in his prime, young, could play the point. But if they draft a point guard, and we'll get to that a little bit later, if they draft a point guard and that kid is young and we get to see him develop, it seems like Jeff and I are on the same page with this, right? Like, can they actually develop young players? We haven't seen that here and actually have the patience to do it and not try to hit the home run. But to that point, Brian, if they add shooters, which is value, you're always going to need shooters in this league. If that's where they choose to spend some money, maybe going after a Joe Harris, even a Davis Bertans. Now, I think some of those guys are going to get overpaid, and you might have to come to a price and say, should we spend this on this now?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad if they overpaid for it because shooting's a premium, and it's hard to find shooters. So that might be a good way to invest in your team, especially with somebody who's pretty young. Or as in the case of Harris and Bertans, it's still relatively in their prime. So if they spent the money that way, that would be smart. Bogdanovich is another player I think I would spend the money on a little bit more too. He can create his own shot too, and he's got a good shot. Go get a guy like that that's young. That'll help the culture. I'm for that.
Which one was this? Is that the one that played for the Kings or the Pacers?
Yeah, sorry. I should have said that. That's Kings Bogdanovich, not former Pacers, now Jazz Bogdanovich.
The one who's looking at Buddy Hield like, you got that?
And I'm starting and you're on the bench? Yeah, that's the one.
And he's probably going to get overpaid for. What about Carmelo Anthony, 1 year, $8 million? No? Thanks.
No.
Look, Jeff.
It could help RJ Barrett. I mean,
he can help him take touches away. That's it.
Give us your theory on this because we talked about this.
Yeah, so here's the thing, right, Jeff? Look, it's a nice story. We all like the nice stories. Carmelo comes back to the Garden. If there's fans in the building. No Phil Jackson. He's going to get a standing ovation. People like to see him. Maybe he helps lead the Knicks back to the playoffs. And I want to put it in this situation. A lot of people wrote Carmelo off. They said Carmelo couldn't do this anymore. Carmelo clearly showed he could play in the team game. He was good as a third option out there in Portland. He's fine. There's a problem, though, if he comes to the Knicks. He can't be that. As soon as he steps in the locker room, he's going to look around and be like, oh, I'm better than all of you. And he's right. And he's right. That's the thing. He's right. And so Carmelo is going to feel like it's 2010 and start jacking shots like his dad again. And that hurts the word of the day that Jeff brought us. Development. It hurts development. Yeah. And we don't need that right now.
You know what, though? I do think that, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I will say this. If they were fans, if we got rid of COVID by now, if everything was all good, I would kind of like to see it. But there being no fans, I don't need it. I don't need it. It won't be as fun if I see Carmelo Anthony in the Knicks uniform again in an empty arena yelling at Julius Randle for not rotating on a defensive whatever.
I don't want to see it with fans or without fans.
Yeah, it don't matter with fans or without fans. We're good on that. All right, so early in this episode we talked to our guy Jamal Murphy about the draft. We had him here with us, and I gotta ask you, draft is coming up. This is an interesting time. As you know, to quote words from the famous Weebay from The Wire, most years we're sitting there like what Weebay said. I believe that was in season 1. The Knicks done fucked up their draft again. That's what we say most years. How do the Knicks not fuck up their draft this time?
Well,
that is a tough question, Jeff. That is a tough question.
we got the 8th pick again. So I feel like you can't mess that up.
No, you can't because you're the Knicks.
So let me pull up the.
You're right. Let
me pull this up.
The last 8th pick we had was my guy Frank Ntilikina. You know, I get a lot of stuff for saying he's my guy, but I'm gonna ride with him for one more year.
Both of y'all.
Jeff and I both like that pick.
I'm gonna ride with him for one more year. Hopefully we got some development coaches in here, so hopefully we see something. But I don't know. This is really not a deep draft, so it's hard to say what we need and who we should draft.
Let me just give you this real quick. The history of the 8th overall pick as it pertains to last decade. I'm just going to read off 10 names who were most recently the 8th overall pick so you know what company you guys are drafting in.
All right.
You have last year was Jackson Hayes. The year before, Colin Sexton. The year before that, Frank Ntilikina. In 2016, Marquise Chris. 2015, Stanley Johnson. 2014, Nick Stauskas. 2013, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 2012, Terrence Ross, 2011, Brandon Knight, 2010, Al-Farouq Aminu.
So within that
2009, Jordan Hill.
Another Knick pick. So within hearing that,
2005, Channing Frye, that was a good Knick pick.
Within hearing that, that was a decent pick at that time. Within hearing that, you did not name, if I'm not mistaken, in the last decade, the 8th pick, there has not been one All-Star. There is probably the best player out of that, if I'm not mistaken, out of everything I heard, the best player out of that just won a championship with the Lakers and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That was the best player out of everybody with the 8th pick.
Well, we still have to see what happens with Jackson Hayes and Colin Sexton. I'm a little more optimistic about Jackson Hayes' development there.
Yeah. Not a fan of Colin Sexton.
When you go further back, it doesn't get much better because there's Joe Alexander and Brandon Wright, but there's also Rudy Gay. You know what I mean? Jamal Crawford in the year 2000. In the 90s, the 8th overall pick was way better because you had Andre Miller, Larry Hughes, and Kerry Kittles, and Brian Grant and Vin Baker, but that's so long ago.
Some of those guys made multiple All-Star teams.
Yeah, and a couple of those guys also played with the Knicks past their primes. But look, there's also some talk about whether or not the Knicks will trade up, trade back. I don't know. I just think that as it pertains to the actual players, Tyrese Halliburton, Killian Hayes, one of those two, that's your guy. I kind of like Halliburton a little bit more, but we know this thing is a crapshoot. At the end of the day, like I feel like it shouldn't matter what pick or whatever. Like there are teams that figure this out all the time. Like Miami just find Bam Adebayos and Tyler Heroes, and then they signed Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson for nothing. It's like there are organizations that just are able to find guys. You know, the Spurs identified Kawhi Leonard and traded for him. Like the Knicks just have to be able to do it regardless of where the pick is.
And it all comes down to development.
And that too.
I agree with the Tyler Hero and the Bam. I feel like if Tyler Hero was drafted by the Knicks, he would be a nobody. Not a nobody, but I feel like he would suffer. I feel like he would suffer with the way the media is just the lifestyle of New York.
What he would be getting so much, fill in the blank there.
Well, I mean that can happen. That can happen in Miami too.
It is happening in Miami. Yeah. He's with Kyle Kuzma's ex already. And look, like I understand, like the whole thing about NBA players and being with the same women roughly, but like, I mean, if you look at her Instagram, like, I get it. You know what I mean? I understand. I'm just saying, in New York, that would have been an issue too.
I'm sure it would have been. So, would you want to see the Knicks move up at all in this draft, Jeff?
I wasn't upset. I wouldn't be upset if they did that. I saw that they were interested in the second pick. But the asking price that the Warriors were asking was just a bit too high. Not sold on giving up Mitchell Robinson. Not sold on that.
So I would assume that would be for probably James Wiseman then. If Mitchell Robinson would be in that trade.
Yeah.
Unless they want to pair LaMelo Ball up and RJ Barrett, which I like the idea of a little bit more before the last few months.
Why'd you say no to that, Jeff? You're not a fan of LaMelo Ball?
No, I like his game. I think he matured a bit from his high school days where he was pulling up from 70 feet. But I just don't. I don't know how that would work.
Who is the draft pick for both of you guys? Who is the draft pick at 8th overall that would piss you off the most? And why is it Cole Anthony and Obi Toppin?
100% was going to go with Obi Toppin. 100% was going to go
I
with Obi
like
Toppin.
Obi Toppin too. You know what I mean?
He's a great college player, great. But I don't think I'm not too sure if his game is going to translate into the NBA.
I'm not sold on him either. I don't know if there's anybody
You
that
just don't want to draft a 22-year-old with the 8th overall pick. I understand. Does that?
No, I mean,
Well, Cole's also 21, so
That's
both of
right.
them are.
That's right. He's an older freshman.
Yep.
yeah.
That's right. I forgot Cole Anthony's 21. Oh boy.
I think the thing is about how much both those guys, how much more they can develop, or how much more development they have in them. That questions to me. Toppin, still got the athleticism, but I'm like Jeff. I'm not sure how that all translates to the NBA. I really want to see the Knicks get the best point. I think I'll be pissed if they kind of don't take a point guard. They have so many holes.
They have to get a point guard.
Yeah, they
and
have
Kyra Lewis, you guys like also.
Yeah, we like
I like
Kyra Lewis from Alabama. Yeah. If they could, if they felt like the point guard they wanted, like you mentioned, Hayes or Halliburton, both of whom I like, although I have some concerns about both of them. Like Hayes is very left-hand dominant and doesn't really use his other hand, and so that kind of concerns me. But if they couldn't get those guys to say, hey, we're going to move down and think they can get a Kyra Lewis and add an asset or something, I would be fine with them doing that. Identify the guys you want to get, go after them, target that guy. If you think Kyra Lewis is a player, which I've heard people like Ian Begley and others report that they think there's some interest in him, all right, fine. Let's go target him and get some more assets and then see what else you could do with the 27th pick and what you have there.
Here's something I wouldn't be upset with. Like, let's say they do draft Tyrese Halliburton.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also have what, the 27th pick?
27th pick, yeah.
39 or
27
something
and
like that?
All right, I think Trey Jones would be available at either of those picks.
Brian likes that. Brian likes him.
I wouldn't be upset with Trey Jones for a late first round pick, second round pick.
Yeah, that's interesting too, Jeff, because you wouldn't be mad if they ended up taking 2 point guards, and if one of them emerges as a backup and one emerges as a starter. I don't think that's a bad plan.
Or they can play together.
I too am fine on Trey Jones as a late first round pick. A lot of people project him to be a backup guard, but a solid backup guard or low end starting NBA point guard, very possible. Another guy like is Malachi Flynn out of San Diego State. Guy can create his own shot. Could be a combo kind of guard. Look, we need talent, man. I keep saying that. The right talent. The right talent. We need the right talent.
I would wonder, because Trey Jones is somebody I really like for them late. I also like Devon Dotson, who me and Jeff saw up close. I think he played at the Barclays Center in Kansas.
Yes.
This was a cup. I think we saw him twice. Fast as fuck. He is probably the fastest player in this draft. He's good. His shot could get a little better, but I think he's somebody who I'm intrigued by what he could do at the next level. And he's out of Kansas. I wonder if he could be a Devontae Graham type. You know what I mean? Where he just kind of has a whatever first season and then blows up when he gets some more of an opportunity the next year. I wonder also because there's trading back, trading up. How far? Because I'm looking at it now, 8, 27, 38. If you're trying to trade up, because maybe this isn't the draft to trade up, but maybe there's somebody you really like who will go high up. Can 8, 27, and 38 get you into the top, 3? Does it get you past 4? And if so, is there somebody there who maybe if Anthony Edwards falls, or maybe they really like one of these other guys like Patrick Edwards, who's really, high, or a lot of people are very high on him now?
Mm-hmm.
I have to know that. Look, if they're going to make a move like that and move up and they identified somebody they think that's great, then fine. It would say a lot, especially if they got it right. They get lauded for it.
Isaac Okoro, Onyeka, there's a bunch of guys.
Look, I would say if you identify a guy as a front office and you believe in him and you think that guy can be that dude or that kind of player and you want to go for it and get it, fine. But, I remember the last time we ever seen the Knicks do that in the draft. I'm not sure we've ever seen the Knicks do that in the draft.
That's true.
Really target a guy and get that guy. So if they feel that way with this front office, we'll see. This is a big draft for them. I think they got to get value out of it in some way. So whether that's targeting a guy, whether that's kind of what Jeff is saying, looking at what you're doing later in the draft with 27, identifying the right kind of guy there too. That stuff is huge.
But what
Yeah.
I can say, they have done a pretty good job later in the draft, like the last few years.
That's
Mitchell
true.
Robinson.
We were able to find Mitchell Robinson and Iggy. We was able to get him.
Yep.
So I like his game. So maybe he gets some NBA minutes. But I think we've been able to capitalize on like the late draft situations. I even like the dude in the G League. I forgot his name. Kenny Wooten.
Kenny Wooten.
Kenny Wooten. Yeah. He's
I
a
love
very
his
good
game
shot
too.
blocker.
You know, the Knicks scouting has not been
in
bad.
fairness, though, they might actually. It's funny because we were talking about Killian Hayes and Tyrese Halliburton, and there's no guarantee that they're going to fall there. Like it's possible that you might need to package a 2 or even all your picks to move up to like 4 and secure that you get one of those guys because there are a couple other teams who may want somebody. And I think, you can pack it if you really believe. I think Dexter, to your point, if you really believe that's your guy, you could package 8. Let's say they even package all 3 of them, 8, 27, 38. You could buy another second round pick. You know what I mean?
Could.
You just buy it back into the second
round.
round.
Man, if you get the guy and he's that dude and that dude turns out into, I'm not even saying to be a superstar, but if he turns out to be an all-star level player, which is I think what people like Jeff and I are hoping and looking for, that's not too bad. But, Jeff, I don't know where you are now. I guess how are you feeling after we talk this? This is kind of like mixed therapy here. After you've talked through this, as our man Greg would say, you need some mixed therapy. As you've talked through this, are you even feeling more optimistic? Because you've started making me feel a little bit better. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I can't think negative anymore. Like I said, I feel like James Dolan doesn't have his hand in as many decisions as he did in the past. We got Leon Rose, Will Wild West. We also got my guy scouting, Alex Klein. He used to be with the Pelicans, so we're trying to shift the culture here, and I'm all in. All
right. Well, we hope they shift the culture. We hope things get better. And we got some picks in here or have an offseason we can be happy about. Well, before we go, guys, what would you like to see? If the Knicks, let's say they hit on these draft picks, whatever it is, they get a guy in here that looks good, that has us excited. What do you think for other Knicks fans should be if they do those things and have a decent offseason, maybe sign a shooter or two? What do you think it would be a good season in your eyes for the New York Knicks in 2020, 2021?
It's a great question.
When you've lost that much, you got to take time and think about it.
That is true. That is true. That is true. Like if we can squeeze into the AFC, because I don't see the East being as strong as it is. So the last 5 spots. Realistically, the last 4 playoff spots is like a toss up. So if you can have a competitive year, we don't have to win a lot, but if we have a competitive year, I don't mind seeing a whole bunch of games that we lose, but at least lose by 5.
They're in the games, right?
Yeah, as long as we're in the game and we're learning something out of it. Like,
all right, I can rock with that. I don't want to see these teams get blown out and we're all depressed.
I don't
get depressed about Knick games anymore.
What do you want to see out of RJ Barrett this season?
I want to see him learn how to shoot the ball.
And hit some free throws.
I don't know if that's gonna happen anytime soon. But.
Oh shit!
What do you mean, Jeff? What do you mean you don't know if it's gonna happen anytime soon? All he's had is time during this pandemic to be shooting. RJ Barrett better come out shooting good.
That is true.
I do think he's one of these dudes. Like he's gonna put in too much work to just be a total like bust or whatever the case may be. Like I think he's gonna end up being good. I'm still very high on him.
Yeah, the thing was he had a solid season. He just hit his rookie wall.
And this team didn't give him like
proper spacing,
the proper tools, spacing.
Yeah.
Like he had, he looks around and it's like Bobby Portis is here and fucking Taj Gibson is here and Mitchell Robinson is here. And then it's like, what the fuck? Like, where am I going to go do my shit?
Last year's team was poorly constructed, so I'm not going to put too much of that on him. But I feel like if he has enough, like we do need shooters. So if we have shooters, then the floor is spaced out. Because he's a fantastic driver. So if he has the shooters where he could just drive the ball and then kick it out, I think he'll have a pretty good year.
Gets to the line. Got to hit 75-80% of those free throws too. Gets to the line a lot.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to see how his game improves. All right, man. Jeff, we thank you for joining us on this Knicks therapy. Hopefully the Knicks don't fuck up their draft again. That is the hope. We're hoping that doesn't happen. That's it for this episode of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. Thank you to our guest, Jeffrey Armstrong, also Jamal Murphy. Please be sure to subscribe, check out our survey, leave us a review, and tell Brian that he is a Heat fan, because we all know that he is, even though he be frying. It's all good.
Knicks in 7.
Knicks in 7. That is the word. All right, that's it for this episode of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. For Brian Fonseca, our guy, Jeffrey Armstrong. Until next time, y'all. Peace.
Peace.